Hello, welcome to a new video. Today we will talk about sound designing and how you can create unique sounds and step up your production game in general. In today's really saturated dubstep world and in general music industry, it's really important to get creative for sound design and to create sounds which basically haven't existed before. Therefore, it's important to step away from the classic approach of sound designing, but just doing everything inside of one serum or one vital, for example, and then just use this. This is why I want to present you my method, which I've been using in the last couple of days, which basically requires serum, and then we are basically just going to resample the sound and making more out of it. The first sound or the first project file I have opened here was done yesterday during the stream. If you want to see how I did everything step by step, you can just watch the stream, and now I will basically just break it down. The sound which I made in serum first sounded like this. Which basically just follows a simple LFO pattern with a nice wobble shape right here. And there's also a ton of processing going on afterwards. Without any processing, it sounds like this. So basically just a saw wave being filtered and also being mirrored. And a classic filter. Some effects like delay, distortion, phaser, compression, filtering, a few filters actually. Also band reject is underrated. And some reverb. Then I added some distortion. In this case, the opera distortion by eye feature. And after that, another one. Which basically completely destroys the sound. But now the magic kicks in. Fusion, also a plugin by eye feature. He also gave me a code for this plugin last week, BassTi 2. If you want to get it on his Patreon, it's really sick. It basically resynthesizes the audio signal. And I've also made a full walkthrough video on Sunday last week. And basically resynthesizes the signal in a really cool way with nice artifacts. And basically the distortion beforehand just gives it more character. So Fusion has to do more resynthesis work here because of other distortion happening before it. And then we get that really massive character. Plus the artifacts are really cool. And then there's some filtering. Some EQing, some snap heap, convolver and disperser, some N-spec complied, another N-spec complied with the OTT curve, and another one. So basically just 3 OTTs. Another EQ to just boost the sub a little bit, and in the end, another N-spec complied to just round it out. And then I resampled the signal. This is what I rendered, basically. Also, it sounds slightly different every time, because I think there was some randomization happening in the patch. And this is what it sounded like after that, and I've also recorded a few iterations. And I think this was the version without the distortion happening before the fusion. And then I basically just took a snippet, I think it was this snippet, or one of these. I put this into the new Spectral oscillator from Serum 2, which now sounded like this. Added more processing here to get just more character out of it. I'm using a gate here, also the pitch shifter with 2 macros, which are basically automating the shape, basically doing the shape right here. And there's no effects here happening, then just another fusion. And an N-spec complied, and that's basically it. And I also think Spectral plugins in general are the way for the future, because Spectral processing allows us to get really cool and unique sounds. So another cool tip when you want to apply fusion is that you do filtering like I did here in the serum. So basically just the fusion has more room to add the high end on. And it sounds cleaner when you get rid of the high end here, and also better for the compression which you add afterwards, so you can add the high end with the compression. Then I just resampled a few iterations here and got these sounds. It's just serum, just the spectral oscillator basically. And now we already have many different variations for which we can use in our songs. And for example, just use them like they are now and only post-process them slightly to make the fit, or just resample them again. Just take a little snippet or put it into a quantizer. And this is a really effective way to come up with unique sounds all the time. And also you can use the warp algorithms, the repitch complex, tones, texture complex pro, and so on, to get even more crazy results out of it. Another cool sound I want to show you was this one, which was basically just another serum with the same input file. I think you can just rewatch it in the stream. And I also applied some fusion and delay, which was being randomized with a cool Max for Live device. I will make a video about really sick Max for Live devices next week. This is one of them. Some snap heaps with more dispersing and so on, some compression. I also came up with really crazy spectrally sounds, which don't sound really impressive first, maybe just on the sound design aspect, but it's really hard to think of them in a context. But if I want to use them in context, I'll just take tiny snippets out of them and use them as fills, throw reverb on there, maybe make them mono and make them stereo afterwards again. Works in context a little bit better, or just do some stuff in the background. But you can see, crazy results can be done with just randomization and spectral processing. Some other cool sounds I want to show you are these right here, which are basically just digital growls. Spectral processing again. I've already recorded a few iterations here, as you can see here, and just took the best bits. And this is also a great way to get nice results, to just mass produce sounds with just slightly variations all the time, and then just pick the ones which stick out the best to you and collect them in your own little library. So let's have a look at the serum patch. The original serum patch was sounding like this. Just basically just a saw wave, some filtering, and distortion, delay, more filtering, compression, and phasing, and some reverb. I've EQ'd it and also added fusion again, because fusion really gives it a unique character and just makes it better immediately. Then NSpec complied for the compression, some more filtering, some comp filtering, another fusion, and yeah, some more filtering, snap heap with some formant filtering and dispersing, and some slight distortion, a filter table, and in the end just another NSpec complied. And this sound already sounds kind of cool, but I wanted to make it even better. So this is why in the next step I took this file, this one, and threw it into a serum, which isn't working right now because I deleted the file, but it must be this one. I went extremely crazy with the spectral processing here. I used the subharm and the spreading to emphasize some frequencies here and to give it some more movement. And the movement is happening with this macro, which is basically controlling everything in here. There's also some additional filtering happening, like a diffuser, an all-pass filter, and this weird pain filter right here. This is going into the fusion without and with. Much more clean and also much more heavy and straightforward to the point. Then we got some snap heap with just some disperser and some shepherd table and distortion, and spec gate for some high-end reduction, and a slight EQ dip, and at the end an NSpec complied for the round off. And then I also recorded many different variations again. Of course, not every sound sounds perfect. There's some good material in there. You can just collect these and add them to your arsenal. And here you can see my workflow really is relying a lot on the resampling aspect I just told you about. By just creating a sound, for example in Serum, and then just throwing some processing on it. It doesn't have to be sound good first, but then you can turn it into something good with, for example, spectral processing, or maybe with some processing chains like dispersing, compression, convolving, and all this kinds of stuff. You don't really need to think a lot while doing sound designing. You just have to stack some effects and try out different parameters and see if you can get some cool sounds or cool textures, and then resample again. Also Corpus is really sick for sound design, the Ableton Live stock device. I also covered it in a video a few weeks or a month ago. I hope you learned something from this little video. I will also add a few of these sounds to a free sample pack I will be working on, which was supposed to be the 2000 subscriber special. It has a long overdue now, but I will definitely make it in the next weeks and provide you with some cool free sounds. And also don't forget to check out Fusion if you liked it. We'll see you in the next video. Have a great day and goodbye.